in upstate New York, or whatever music artists do to get inspiration. William Deresiewicz, author of The Death of the Artist, told Vox, before the internet came along, artists not only could let their companies worry about the money, but they actually didn't have a choice. The companies didn't let them. As I talked about in my recent book talk video, having control over your art and the way you're marketed can be empowering if you're someone who's already business savvy, knows your demographic really well, and of course, like, there's lots of predatory management that you can avoid the trappings of if you just do it yourself. However, if you're someone who's more introverted or who doesn't spend a lot of time online, having to market yourself all by yourself can feel daunting and an unfair barrier to entry if your art is already really good. I've talked about Ricky Montgomery before in my musical video, but Jennings quotes him in her article as well. Basically, he's a singer and he made a viral video lamenting over how he has to do all these cringy TikToks because no one else would discover his music otherwise. It's less of like a creative choice for him to want to do it, it's more like a necessity. Jennings also writes, despite the fact that for most people, the act of writing looks very boring, author content creators succeed by making the visually uninteresting labor of typing on a laptop worthwhile to watch. You'll see a lot of cottagecore-esque videos where the writer will sip tea by the fireplace against the soundtrack of Wes Anderson, or wake up in a forest cabin and read by a river, or women like this Oxford University student who dresses up like literary characters and films herself working on her novel. Videos like these emulate the romantic ideal of solitary genius artistry, evoking a time when writing was seen as a more pure or quaint profession. Yet, what they best represent is the current state of art, where artists must skillfully package themselves as products for buyers to consume. Literally this. I sometimes get comments from people asking me to vlog my research process, and the problem is I feel like when I'm researching and writing, it's actually incredibly boring to watch. Also, I'm like always running on deadlines, so the idea of writing to curate a writing scene that's commodifiable enough for TikTok and for my own Libra sensibilities is like an extra hour or two of my day that I don't really have. Anyway, these writing or art making scenes are subtle marketing tools. They are pulling you in to read this person's work or listen to this person's music because their video gives off the air that they are a true artist. There's also this long-standing idea that privacy is not just ideal for the true artist, but for the consumer of art as well. As Deresiewicz writes in his book, the modern person encountered themselves by encountering art, through silent reading and aesthetic contemplation, in the solitude of their own mind. I mean, how many times have we all just laid in bed listening to Lana Del Rey at like 3 a.m. just thinking about life? In contrast, the in-your-face marketing method, like the memeified saying, "Did I just release the song of the summer?" is the total opposite of the solitary genius and makes us consider, why is this person trying so hard? Is it because their art isn't good enough to speak for itself? And you may be wondering, like, why don't all artists just go like the more art-making scene route when they make TikTok content? And honestly, I think it's because the TikTok algorithm rewards people who like talk to the camera and who are more like in your face. So even though one way is a fine way to market, it's also just less likely to go as viral as someone who's like, hey guys, did I just release the song of the summer? So finally, let's talk about Austin Butler. There was a video going around on TikTok. Sorry I'm talking about TikTok all the time. I'm addicted to my phone, okay? Where Austin Butler was interviewed on the red carpet about his favorite childhood movie, and he said,
I love the good, the bad, and the ugly.
And this big creator criticized him for being pretentious, and he said that Austin should have just said Toy Story like the rest of us. The video was taken down because I think the Butler fans came for this person. But, in general, I feel like because I think, and he said,
I love the good, the bad, and the ugly.
And this big creator criticized him for being pretentious, and he said that Austin should have just said Toy Story like the rest of us. The video was taken down because I think the Butler fans came for this person. But, in general, I feel like Austin Butler has activated many people's distaste for tryhards ever since Elvis, when he refused to stop talking with his Elvis voice leading up to the Oscars. And, there were claims that he actually couldn't stop because he method acted too close to the sun.
There's people out there who say that ever since I played Elvis, my voice has changed. But
Oh, it's just a drawing.
I've always sounded like this, and I can prove it.
How excited are you to be Sebastian on the Carrie Diaries?
I'm really excited.
And then there were later claims that I mentioned earlier that he needed an accent coach to get him back to his regular voice. I personally, I felt really weird about his accent claims at the time. They're difficult to fully believe, to be honest. But either way, the conversation many people are not ready for, and that I'm ready to have, is the fact that he slayed Elvis and he slayed the evil Baldy in Dune 2. And I think what's interesting and what's happening with Austin Butler that cannot be said about Jared Leto, who is similar in his method acting publicity antics, is that Austin is actually a good actor. He's good and he tries hard, and those are not mutually exclusive terms. And there's also nothing wrong with trying hard. Hot take. It was his first big role after sort of being a child star flop, starring Austin.
Jacket.
And he was Oscar nominated for it. I think that's incredibly exciting. And I don't think we should hold people getting excited about awards like against them. Most people just like the idea of the private celebrity because they feel this person is not trying to make people like them. They must be so good that their work speaks for itself. And on top of that, it seems like they're overtly trying not to succeed. So if they do succeed, it's a testament to their talent. I think this is also why, once again, Cillian Murphy, but also Renee Rapp and Dakota Johnson got so much fan favor this past year because of how openly blasé they were with the press and with having to market themselves and or their movies. But there's a certain privilege with being able to have this attitude. Jennings writes, the people rewarded for putting themselves out there are most often the same people society already rewards. Algorithms are biased against poor people, against people of color, against people who don't conform to patriarchal societal norms. As just a clear example of how being candid backfired, Rachel Zegler, who was cast as Snow White in the new Disney live-action movie, was the target of a harassment campaign after admitting that she didn't like the animated Snow White growing up.
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
I mean, the new Snow White actress is literally walking around interview to interview just bashing Snow White.
Because Snow White fucking sucks, alright? I'll be the first to say it. I'm on Rachel Zegler's side, alright? People are going so hard for fucking Snow White. They've never seen the originals Disney Snow White. You've never seen that. I've had a VHS and we watched it and it fucking sucked. Alright, I do mean to go on a tangent. Fuck Snow White, alright? People acting like no one cared about Snow White until a black girl was fucking... No, I don't live in Chicago. No one cared about fucking Snow White until a black girl was playing her. Everyone's like, oh, my favorite. Like, no, she wasn't your favorite. No one fucking cared about Snow White. Disney Snow White? Fucking 1936? No one. What, your grandpa liked it? Maybe I'll give you that. But let's be honest here. No one gave a fuck. Everyone forgot about Snow White. Unless, like, you're talking about some remake of it away from Disney. Sure. Maybe it was your favorite. But freaking Disney, 1936? You didn't fucking care about it, alright? I'm throwing a lot of F-bombs. No. But I'm right, alright? And don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise. Also, free Palestine. I shouldn't laugh if I said that, but yeah, free Palestine. Don't tell people where you live. Not on the internet. That's really bad. I've taken too many classes to know you can't trust people on the internet. Oh, I should just play it again. It's quiet as fuck.
Themselves too much is part of how our brains are wired. At least journalist William Storr seems to think so. Storr wrote a book called The Status Game, which is about the human pursuit of higher status and how it defines who we are. He explained to Glamour magazine that our behavior goes back to the hunter-gatherer period where there were mechanisms of maintaining equal status within the tribe. He said, if someone in one of those tribes acted in a big shot way, they get taken down. They get teased, bullied, and humiliated until they stopped and started behaving. So resentment and envy are fundamental parts of the human condition.
How true is that?
This is not to say that advertising ourselves all the time is good for us either. The need to create a brand for ourselves is kind of dystopian, honestly. I also think it's very telling why some of the influencers who've made it through sharing a lot of their life decide to scale back once they realize they don't need to anymore for money. Emma Chamberlain comes to mind for sure, because I remember when she first stopped posting on YouTube every week, people were like, WTF, Emma has quit YouTube, and her comments had people demanding her to come back. She does still post, I think, just not at the same cadence as she used to. But I think it's honestly really hard to go from posting a lot to posting a little.
Yeah, I don't
because people
know.
like
I think it's just
Emma
because the length
are
of
really
it.
good at fostering these parasocial relationships with their followers. So obviously there's going to be some kind of backlash. Martin Cocker and Daunt wrote a piece about influencer gossip forums like Tattle Life, Guru Gossip, Gomi, and the Blog Snark subreddit, and noted that many of the users on there used to be fans of the influencers that they now criticize. As the authors write, establishing privacy can shatter the illusion of intimacy, prompting anger from followers who feel entitled to omitted information. They quote one forum user who wrote, "You can't share a relationship with your followers for the best part of 10 years, then not properly address the breakup. She set the boundaries and level of privacy in her life. She can't just suddenly shift them and not expect a reaction." Emma Chamberlain was actually interviewed by the New York Times last year, and she addressed some of the reasons why she scaled it back. She talked about her physical and psychological safety as being forms of anxiety she constantly dealt with. She said, "I'm terrified because I'm human and I'm not perfect, and who knows what people could find about me. Somebody could make up a lie about me tomorrow and ruin my life. I feel powerless about my own identity at times because I feel like it's in the control of the public. Sometimes it can feel like, ugh, do I even have a voice? I do, but are people listening to me, or do they just have an idea of who I am and that's stronger?" Other influencers like Jenna Marbles, the Dolan twins, and Elle Mills faded out of the public eye for similar reasons. And, who knows what kind of jobs they're doing right now, but I hope they're all happy. I just think it definitely hits lifestyle influencers the hardest because I noticed with musicians that I'm
Yeah, they're supposed to be scars. I'm not good at drawing.
Alumni Justin Bieber.
But yeah, those are
Just kidding, he
scars.
wasn't really vlogging. But Troye Sivan and Coden Gray were both at least part-time YouTube vloggers, and they didn't experience too much backlash from establishing boundaries once their singing careers took off. And I think that's because, one, they're men. But two, prioritizing making art is considered worthy of praise, whereas prioritizing your mental health, sadly, is not. And I also think a lot of it has to do with the fact that once the art is made, it's meant to be shared and enjoyed by an audience at the end of the day. So fans do ultimately benefit from giving their favorites some space to write songs or to method act or whatever. I guess the point of this video is I want to unpack how privacy and elitism are intertwined and also shed some understanding on why some artists are able to maintain a mystique and how, while many artists want to, it's oftentimes not possible for everyone to be as offline as they'd like if they want to make a career doing art full time. I also just thought just now about like an earlier part of my video when I talk about how people feel a certain way about influencers getting invited to Fashion Week. I feel like celebrities also get invited to Fashion Week who have no real interest in fashion or who have a very random association with fashion. Like, Kyle MacLachlan walking for Prada. Maybe Kyle MacLachlan is like really invested in fashion. I don't know. He was just the first celebrity that came to mind.
Replacing the quiet elegance of the dark suit and tie with the casual indifference of these muted earth tones. It's a form of fashion suicide, but call me crazy. On you it works.
Where it's like, this
Yeah, because I'm
is
done.
really weird, but it's also like camp because it's so
Bye.
weird. But an influencer walking for a fashion